What is going on YouTube? This is Acid Root. So I'm going to review the 2009 EP by T.I. Basically, this project is called Paper Trail Case Closed, and it came out in the summer of 2009. So the thing about this particular project was originally this is going to be a re-release of Paper Trail back in 2009. It was supposed to happen before T.I. went to prison. It was kind of supposed to be like a holdover package before he dropped his next album that was going to come out in 2010 when he got out of prison. But basically the concept about it was eventually it kind of got Eventually, this particular project got waterlogged in 2009 as far as that pitch kind of went along with it, but some good concepts going to get here. Originally, this project was going to have 5 extra songs when it was a bonus package of Paper Trail throughout 2009, the stuff that T.I. was working on. But there was a project that came out right before T.I. went to prison, basically like within the week of T.I. going to prison in like the spring of 2009. That project was called A Year and a Day. It's a mixtape that came out in late May of 2009. It was a pretty good pitch to get that one. Had some decent gems on there. It wasn't a classic. It had the two new songs that are on this particular Case Closed EP, which was Remember Me and Hell of a Life. You can find on that Year and a Day mixtape, but albeit you can find it in the clean format. So I would just prefer to get this Paper Trail Case Closed EP, despite the fact that it's kind of tough to find. Now, supposedly, the thing about this particular project is just the fact that it was not released in America. It's a real tough to track down kind of project nowadays, especially 15 years later, I'd have to say. But originally, it was like supposedly at least came out in Europe, pitches like that. I'd have to say I tried looking for it on like Amazon and eBay and some of those type places, but I wasn't able to find it. So apparently, it's a pretty tough and tricky to find type project. But I'd say it's definitely a rare item. I'd have supposed to. So if you do manage to track down this project, definitely covet it because it's a pretty definitely covet it because it's a pretty valuable project and overall heavy hitting type one that has a lot of appeal. So this project is basically going to get a 10 out of 10. I would say I'm just going to cut to the chase just because of the fact that it is because there's 3 songs on here that are already on Paper Trail. It has Supposed in particular. It's kind of a haphazard type one. I don't know why T.I. didn't fill out the rest of this project with some newer type songs. It seemed like it was just kind of scattershot and it was just kind of a leftover idea that didn't get to realization like it needed to, I'd have to say, which is really too bad because I wonder some of the other songs that T.I. was working on in 2009. I do know that Remember Me and Hell of a Life were at least released as singles back in like the spring and the late winter and spring of 2009. Those 2 songs were at least released to radio, or at least attempted to be as far as that pitch kind of went along with it. But it just kind of got haphazard when T.I. went to prison in the spring of 2009, which is really unfortunate. I think that this project probably could have been realized and really been like another classic for T.I. had that happened properly the way it was supposed to. But it just was kind of abandoned and just didn't really this project was kind of mum's the word on the topic of it and just kind of really became like taboo as far as that particular kind of went. And even nowadays, it's not a ton of folks that even realize about this particular product. That's it. That's the concept of it. The songs on here are pretty good. I just would have to say I recommend all 5 of the songs. This project gets a 10 out of 10. Just would have to say. So we'll go ahead and talk about these and I'll just go ahead and talk about the 2 singles. So basically, Remember Me is the first single. This was the new song that came out in 2009, right before T.I. went to prison. Both of these are pretty pitched, I'd have to say, in terms of the new stuff. This is like a mid-pace. Remember Me is like a mid-pace, kind of driven, makeshift ambition of a song, I'd have to say in particular. This one's more composed. This one's like a more composed version of Live Your Life, I would definitely have to say in particular. And this is just some good work-a-day type snaps. So the thing about these 2 new songs on here is just the fact that Remember Me is more like Live Your Life and Hell of a Life is more like Whatever You Like, I'd have to say. So it's a pretty good concept to get these 2 new type ones, just a darker type format. The thing about both these new songs from 2009 is they have like the Paper Trail these 2 new songs have like the Paper Trail template as far as that particular kind of went. These newer songs have like the Paper Trail template as far as that particular kind of went, but it's just in a very darker and just kind of slog more type format that just is different from T.I. from what I had seen around that particular time. This is about as recent as T.I. kind of got in terms of like the commercial makeshift that he had back in the late 2000s, I'd have to say, because he switched up his tempo by the time we got to the No Mercy album from 2010. I'd have to say in particular, it's just a different taste of T.I. No Mercy was just a different taste of the stuff that T.I. was doing by that particular point, but this particular aspect that T.I. was getting to, this is probably him at like his most sheerly commercial, and it just felt like he was effortlessly kind of sifting through some of these type formats to kind of get to. It's just a real excellent type concept to get like these extra kind of bonus songs that were kind of on like the Paper Trail template and pitches like that. So Remember Me is definitely a pretty nice one. Has a great hook from Mary J. Blige on here. It's a pretty good pitch to get this one in particular. Just kind of the concept of like some more driven makeshift, just in a more like Live Your Life was at least some pop rap type ones that just had a little bit more jubilance about it. I have to say, definitely Live Your Life was just kind of a #1 type song that just had a lot of appeal towards it. It was just typical format for like late 2000s type fare for some good worship. But this one, a little bit more just the ambition behind it's a little bit more steadfast and stoic, I'd have to say in particular. Just a lot more driven and just kind of has like that kind of stalwart type feel about it, but it's just kind of the concept that it works pretty well. Just kind of get some of this just within the aspect of just being like a darker rendition of Live Your Life. And it's a pretty effectual type one. It's very underappreciated. I would recommend buying this song digitally since it's tougher to find like Paper Trail case close, but some good stuff. And then Hell of a Life was the second single. This was another one that kind of charted somewhat, but not quite as surely. I feel like the thing about both these songs, Remember Me was like a top 30 single that this did actually chart on the Billboard 100 back in 2009, but it just didn't hit as heavily as it needed to. I think that was kind of the format just because T.I., with all three of the singles on this particular EP and just on the Paper Trail album, Live Your Life, Dead and Gone, Whatever You Like, I'll hit number one or number two on the Billboard. So it's just kind of the concept that I guess the top 30 singles not good enough. And Hell of a Life, I don't remember how high that charted, but I want to say that relatively charted as well. But basically, Hell of a Life is like a slogged, kind of jeery pop rap. Hell of a Life, the second single, is like a slogged, kind of jeery pop rap of a song that had to say in particular. It's like a haunting, kind of grim rendition of Whatever You Like. I definitely would have to say that Whatever You Like format, I would have to suppose. And this is just a pretty flip mode type song, I'd have to say. So the concept about it, like the lyrics on this particular song are pretty jovial, just within the sense of just being like another rendition of Whatever You Like, just not as ladies bound. I'd have to say it's just a good concept just to have some of that pop rap type of appeal, but the production fare of it is just very ghastly and just overall haunting. Probably one of the more haunting type songs I've heard T.I. on, despite the fact of the pitch behind it. I mean, I realized that T.I. was going to prison and he had a lot on his mind as far as that particular kind of went, but it's just interesting that this sort of pop rap had such a jeering type of appeal about it. It's just an interesting concept because this is like the negative side of the coin. This is like the other side of the coin. The positive side of the coin, the negative side of the coin. This is like the negative side of the coin on like the Paper Trail aspect of the stuff that was going on in like the late summer and fall of 2008 as far as that pitch kind of went. Whatever You Like was definitely like some pop rap, sugary pop rap type bubblegum, I'd have to say. And the same thing with Live Your Life, like a certain aspect. But these two new songs, Remember Me is definitely a more militant and driven type one. And Hell of a Life is just like a jeery kind of slog kind of pop rap type tune that just has a lot of grim, just ghastliness about it that just works pretty well, I'd say. But the thing about the chorus is the chorus on Hell of a Life just really is very similar to Whatever You Like. That same kind of pop rap approach is something that probably should have charted. I just think possibly folks were tired of T.I. around this particular time. Maybe the whole aspect of him going to prison was just getting drawn out a bit. But I just would have to say that both these singles are pretty excellent, just in particular. So as far as that particular kind of goes, so some excellent type stuff here. These are underappreciated T.I. songs by quite a bit, I'd have to say, and I do recommend buying them digitally just because the concept that they're very underappreciated. Just too bad this album really didn't come out because I would have liked to have gotten 3 more songs that would have been just like these. I just wonder some other songs and formats that could have happened. Just some of the stuff that he was working on in early 2009 before he went to prison would have been an awesome concept. But and talk about the other 3 songs on here. Basically, Live Your Life, talk about this one again. This is like a stock kind of late 2000s rap makeshift of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a workday presentable TIP in particular, I'd have to say. It's a good bop for that. And this is like a good bop for like the weekdays, I'd have to say in particular. So this one, with the Rihanna hook and pitches like that, just really happens to have some excellent type stuff that just works pretty surely, I'd have to say. This was a #1 hit back in the day. This is just a stock kind of late 2000s type fair and flash that just has a lot of good overall appeal about it. It's pretty workaday and just kind of dreary, but I do like the concept of getting some of these just to be able to have that. Dead and Gone with Justin Timberlake was another megaton type hit, I'd have to say. It's like a seldom kind of atonement makeshift of a song, makeshift drear. It's like a seldom kind of atonement makeshift drear of a song, I'd have to say in particular. It's like a surprising single to chart so heavily. I'd definitely have to say this hit #2 on the Billboard back in early 2009. Pretty good pitch for that. And this is just like some rainy day, kind of workaday type fare, I'd have to suppose. So all of these singles on here are just built for the radio. It's really a commercial TIP just within the pitch behind it. There's really not any in-between album cuts to kind of get with like the more gangster rap type TI or southern rap, swag rap type TIs. Southern rap or swag rap type TI as far as that pitch kind of goes. This kind of concept is just strictly the singles, just a burst, just a quick little EP burst of like the pop rap type amalgamation of stuff that he was doing on Paper Trail, just with like a darker swirl about it, I have to say. So Whatever You Like's the last one on here. This is another good pitch. It's definitely like a poppy kind of sugary ladies fluff of a song, I'd have to say. Is like a radio ready bop for like some peppy blue collar times, I'd have to say in particular. And this is just some catchy fun. So it's definitely a pretty nice one. This is another song that hit #1. This might be a song where folks might have thought that T.I. couldn't sold out. This is definitely real pop rap ready and just fluffy, I'd have to say. It was a good concept just to get this one because these songs are kind of necessary, but just kind of the concept of just doing it with the proper kind of atmosphere, just being able to do it. I mean, obviously T.I. had ladies in mind with this particular type song. That's the reason why he's so poppy and just overall fluffy and just kind of more of like a butter knife on this particular song. Just kind of more it's just more of a gummy type song and just kind of more of a whipped type. It's just more of like a presentable and whipped type song, I'd have to say in particular. But that's just kind of the concept about it as far as some of these particular kind of goes. It's kind of the concept of just getting some of these, but it is a nice one. I do definitely like this song. Definitely a great song just for ladies as far as that pitch can goes. There's some excellent type concepts, but I feel like the after effect of Paper Trail on this particular album is just kind of affronted by like the two new songs that are on here. I just feel like these two pitches that were kind of worked on, it was just something that really should have been capitalized on a lot further. Just the concept of what Ti was on, just with the same format and template that he had in late 2008 and early 2008 when working on Paper Trail. Just some of these last renditions of the stuff that would have been with that kind of package. I just feel like there definitely needed to be some sort of project or mixtape, something like that, that could have amalgamated this sort of format of the singles that he had around this time. So this is really something that was just kind of a drop ball in the situation. Just wondering what Ti could have done had he been around in 2009 pitches like that. It's just really too bad. This is kind of the concept because I feel like he lost some of his sweet spot around this particular time because No Mercy was good. But it was just a different variation from Ti because he abandoned the particular style of Paper Trail by the time we got to No Mercy, and the singles just didn't chart as heavily from that point forward. I'd have to say, so it's just too bad about that. It's really just the concept. I don't want to say it's the end of an era, but it was definitely the concept of just as far as saying that it just was kind of just like a real drat kind of situation because this was some pretty sheer stuff that gotten this. Just these two songs, Remember Me and Hell of a Life, are just so dark and just slogged and cheery. I just would have to say it's just the concept of getting some of these. It just was pretty ghastly type connotation that definitely need to be exploited more. So that's kind of the thing. But so yeah, this EP gets a 10 out of 10. The social score I'm going to give like a 10 out of 10 also just because the aspect of the potential of this particular product and things like that. Just it's kind of tough to track down. That's the only reason why I would give it a 10 out of 10. That's the only reason why I would give it less than 10 out of 10 is just because it's tough to track down. I mean, you can buy these two new songs digitally, so that's a you can buy these two new songs digitally, so that's a pretty good concept to get those. But it's just too bad that this project was just not more realized and stuff like that. It's just kind of the concept, it's just low key. I'm still going to review it and still post it up just because the concept that it is worth it to find and maybe get this remanufactured and stuff like that. That'd be a great thing to get this remanufactured. Maybe Ti could. I mean, it's unlikely that Ti would throw new songs on there, but just the concept of supposing, in a pipe dream type sense, that could kind of happen. That's just kind of the format behind it. But we look after it. 10 social. In terms of the future, like Ti has at least one more album that he said he's going to work on. Apparently, he might be retiring pitches like that, but there are still plenty more Ti projects to kind of get to and some of those type things. I just would have to suppose that's some excellent type concepts, but I definitely wanted to review this. Little known about project here, just in particular, I'd have to say it's really uncommon for folks to talk about it in common knowledge nowadays, but it is an excellent type one. I do recommend tracking down these two new songs and fucking with them because it's definitely worth the investment.